Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we have a reading journal update video where we're first gonna chat about some books I've been reading recently while I show you how I set up a spread of them. And then at the end we're gonna set up a cover layout for the fourth quarter of this year and talk a little bit about my reading plans for this season. I only read 4 books this time as well, but all of them are pretty different from each other, so I definitely have more to talk about than in my previous videos. So let's jump right in, and the first book I read a few months ago is a non-fiction book that I haven't read in years. This is called Slow Productivity: The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout, and it's by Newport. And something about the name just caught my eye and I started to read it almost right away. I'm gonna set up a little bit different style spread for this book, focused more on quotes and my notes rather than decorations. It just didn't feel necessary to decorate a self-help book, so we're keeping things a little bit more simple here, and by the end I actually wished I had left even more space for my notes. The book, however, I found very interesting. I say right away that I don't think this is very helpful for everyone, and it's mostly geared towards someone who is either self-employed or just has a lot of freedom to choose their own working rhythm. I saw many comments saying the same, and I totally agree with them, but as someone who is self-employed, I actually found this book very refreshing and thought-provoking as well. In a nutshell, I think this is an anti-hustle book. It describes a problem that I feel like many of us know, which is the never-ending busyness and strive to always be productive. And this book does a pretty good job actually proposing contrasting ideas and reasons not to fall into this mindset. The book introduces 3 main principles for this idea of slow productivity, which are do fewer things, work at a natural pace, and obsess over quality. It uses many famous people and their stories to explain these principles, and it was clear that the writer has done his research about the subject. I definitely felt like this was exactly what I needed to read this summer. The message and reasoning of the book resonated with me a lot, and it did encourage me to start thinking about changes that I could make in my life to focus on the quality of my work and skills over time, rather than just keeping myself busy running after my short-term goals. I've been thinking about this idea of a slow, simple, quiet life a lot recently, and isn't that what most of us want in the end? It's interesting to think what has gone so wrong when many of us need to work endlessly just to make ends meet, even after all these technological innovations that are supposed to make our lives easier, but it doesn't quite seem to go like that. But anyway, if you are self-employed, I highly recommend giving this book a go. It's pretty short and to the point. But now that I got my one self-help book in 5 years out of the way, let's jump back to fiction, shall we? The next book I read was The Far Horizon, which is the final 4th book in this pirate adventure love story series by Marcia Canham. I've talked about this series multiple times in my reading journal videos, and I'm so sad that it's finally over. On this spread, I wanted to use some of these Ikigai Papir stickers that happen to perfectly match the colors and the ocean vibes, so I just used them all over the spread. This 4th book might have been my favorite in the series, though it's really difficult to beat the first one. That one, however, has some scenes where you can see that it's not written very recently and to a more modern female audience. The newer books definitely feel a little bit more considerate of that fact. But yeah, this was again a masterpiece when it comes to writing about the 17th century. The details, the elegance, the way people talk and dress and behave, it all feels extremely realistic and well researched. This story is about a clever, strong-willed jewel thief who ends up on a pirate ship, and for me, it was just one of those entertaining, good reads that I knew I was gonna enjoy and that didn't let me down. So yeah, I'm once again highly encouraging any fans of historical fiction with steamy romance to give these books a go. And if you have any recommendations for something similar, it doesn't even have to include pirates, but something well written, historical adventure with romance for the adult taste, I'm all ears because I need a new comfort series. But now it's time to move on to the big one that I finally finished this time, and I'm of course talking about the last book in the Throne of Glass series, Kingdom of Ash. I don't know where to even start. I also don't know how I'm gonna talk about this book without spoiling anything, but I'm not going to, so even if you haven't read this series, no worries, just don't read my notes because there are definitely spoilers in there. Anyway, I don't even know how to explain to you guys how much this book took out of me. It's long and so heavy. This final book is so intense, the lows are low, the highs are high, which makes sense considering everything, like how this book started and what it is about. But yeah, I lost count how many times I teared up or full on cried while reading this. I don't think I've cried this much since reading the second Twilight book. There are certain scenes in this one that still make me cry, but all in all, what an amazing ending to this series. To put it into perspective, this series is longer than all of Harry Potter, which is insane to me. The fact that I got through all the books is already a small miracle because I've struggled reading longer series these past years. However, this one, in my opinion, deserves all the hype. You just meet so many amazing characters and start to care about them so deeply that it's impossible to not be a weeping mess when you're getting closer to the end. I will say that there are still things that bother me a little bit, like how the guys are just a little bit too perfect, or how some of the characters are way too young to be what they are, and so on and so forth. But in the grand scheme of things, this is such an incredible story. The world, the creatures, the creativity, the characters, the love stories, the growth stories, and the fun moments that made me laugh out loud through my tears. It's just all around an amazing series. If you like this genre, not even romantasy, but if you like fantasy with some love story on the side, just give this a go and I think you might like it too. I thought it was only fitting to go for a fully black spread for this one, but anyway, let's move on to the last book this time. I of course felt thoroughly empty and hollow after finishing Kingdom of Ash, so I just wanted to start something quick and completely different, and I chose to go with The Housemaid, which I've seen pop up on my Goodreads and also on my social media this year, and this is a book I've been really intrigued by. I believe this is categorized as a psychological thriller. It reminded me quite a lot of Verity, which is a book I read last year, but I'd say that that one for me was by far creepier, more messed up, and also better written. I didn't dislike The Housemaid, it's just one where I'm a little bit surprised about how high it's rated on Goodreads, and I've also seen quite many people giving it like 5 out of 5 stars. Don't get me wrong, this is definitely a page turner. It's unsettling and gets progressively more so when the story moves along, but still, I wouldn't say that this was anything special for me. And I've read many books that, in my opinion, were better, that have a lower rating even in the same genre. I didn't have that feeling of being truly on the edge of my seat while reading this, and probably the biggest problem was that I guessed pretty much every plot twist from the beginning, which is not something you want to happen when reading these types of books. So I would have hoped this to be a little bit more unique and clever. If you want to get into this genre, I'd probably recommend, for example, The Silent Patient way more than this one, which is also a book I read last year. It also has a lower rating than this one, which I think is a crime, but oh well, it's just my opinion. I'd be interested to know what you thought about this book if you have read it, and also if you've read the other 2 books in this series, what did you think about those? For now, I don't think I'm gonna pick up the next one, but I might change my mind. But yeah, that's finally all 4 books I read in the past season. Please let me know what you've been reading recently and if you have any recommendations. I love to read those and list them up. I feel like I always say that I want to read more, but I guess I should just face the reality that it's probably not gonna happen. However, I do have many books that I'm so excited about on my list, so now let's set up the 4th quarter cover spread and talk about those ones as well. I want to keep this spread very fall appropriate, so we're using some warm neutral colors. I also used these lovely stickers that were recently gifted to me by Cherise, and I combined them with some of my own fall products and pictures I've printed from the internet. I especially love her big girl stickers, so I wanted the one I chose to draw a lot of attention here on this spread. I try my best to not go super overboard with this scrapbooky spread, but I guess all my cover spreads kinda end up being quite busy. But I think combining some solid colors in the background instead of only using different patterns is something I've learned to do to reduce the busyness at least a little bit. But then when it comes to my reading plans for this season, I'm definitely gonna read at least one more thriller or something a bit spooky. I have quite a few books that I've kind of been saving for the fall, and the first one is The Only One Left, which I'm probably gonna pick up next. This is also a psychological thriller about a woman who seemingly murdered her family many years ago, and now at an old age she wants to tell her side of the story. It sounds very creepy and interesting. Then next I listed up The Guest List, which is a closed island murder mystery that I've been meaning to read for a long time, but I guess I just kind of forgot about this. Then after this one I listed Billy Summers, which is a newer book by Stephen King. I've never read any of his books and I feel like I should, so if you've read this one, let me know if I should go for it or for something else from him. Next, we have some dark fantasy romance. I listed The Cruel Dark, which I don't know much about, but I thought it would be appropriate with the fall season again. Same with The Shepherd King duology. This one is pretty high on my list. I've seen many people reading it this year, and I feel like a duology is a sweet spot for me at the moment. I'm gonna take a little break from any longer series for a while now that I finally finished Throne of Glass, so this seems really promising. Then lastly, I listed Blood Over Bright Haven, which is along the same lines, a dark fantasy with some romance, I guess. And it's also been pretty high on my list because I've read really good things about this. As always, I might change my mind and pick up something fun and easy after reading a few of these, like maybe a new romantasy book or something like that, but I hope I get to read at least a few from this list. I'd love to know if you have especially any thriller or spooky crime mysteries that you'd recommend, but as always, any recommendations are very welcome. But I think that's all for this time. I'll set up the rest of the book spreads and do a grand flip through of this journal at the end of the year or at the very beginning of 2025, depending a little bit on if I'm still reading something I want to include in that video. But anyways, if this was your first time around here and you'd like to stay tuned for more art and journaling, definitely consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye bye!